Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Kunwu knives. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll show you guys the box right there. Kunwu is how I'm going to say it. Tao. This is the larger guy, front flipper. This is an impressive knife. Even more impressive, I'm going to tell you guys right now, there was a Kickstarter that funded this design and the mini Tao. This was a while ago, right? And then there was so there were people who got in on, the first initial run through the Kickstarter. And then there was a pre-order. And those were also incredible in terms of price. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now to follow them on Instagram because they are still doing more projects and more interesting things. There's definitely some cool stuff they've got in the works for the future. You can also, they have the original Kickstarter that shows everything that was involved with this guy. You can go check that out if you just type in Kunwu knives on Google. But let me say this right off the bat. You can't get this knife right now. I don't know if they'll do this exactly in the future. I know it looks like they're doing another version of the Tao soon. The people who got in on the Kickstarter, they paid $140 for this thing, titanium and M390. And then the people who got in on the production drop got it for $170, which is pretty amazing considering what we're looking at here. I'm going to talk all about it. I just wanted to let you guys know that information right off the bat so that you could stick around if you wanted to, right? But pretty amazing. I have no idea what these go for on the secondary market right now, but I would say don't overpay. Just wait and see what else Kunwu does in the future with this model. Thanks so much to, so I'm going to fold this so you guys can see it. That's Juan. He's got two, he's got an Instagram account, Juan T-E-O Garage on Instagram, and then the one and only on Reddit. So give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thank you for supporting me. There's a link for Patreon down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's get through the specs quickly here. Overall length of this guy is coming in at about 8, just shy of 8 1/4. It's like 8 1/8. Blade length is coming in at 3.5 inches, and your cutting edge is coming in at about 3 1/4. This is a good size. This is the size that I like for sure. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and its little brother, the Ontario Rat Model 2? It is a bit shorter than the Rat 1, but it definitely has the same amount of presence. In fact, I'd argue more considering the thickness and the titanium. How about up against the Spyderco Pm2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Very similar in size, or length at least, to the Spyderco Para 3, just a tad bit shorter. How about up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out? Again, closer to the size of the Ritter Hogue. Carry profile. Let's go ahead and put this guy up against the Spyderco Para 3. So thickness, it's about the same, perhaps a little bit thicker at maximum, right? Because there's chamfers here. So yeah, about the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This guy is a little bit shorter in body than the PM2, a little bit longer than the Para 3, nowhere near as tall, thanks to, how they did the flipper and the front flipper there. It is definitely going to be heavier, though, because of the titanium. Let's take a look at the inside of this guy. Get out my flashlight. We do have some internal milling in there, which is nice. I'm happy to see that. It's actually on both sides. We see down here they've done that there. So that's good, because this would otherwise be a very bulky knife. Well, to some people. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Sorry, I've got some knives in the way up there. I'm going to guess this weighs 4.7 ounces. No, 4.4 ounces. Okay, so ratios are not perfect if you subscribe to the whole ounce and inch thing. However, for me, somebody who enjoys, I carry lighter knives sometimes, but I do enjoy carrying a full-size knife that weighs anywhere from 4 ounces to 6.5 ounces. So yeah, I don't have a problem with this at all. Not a knife that's going to be friendly to athletic shorts, probably more of a jeans knife, and obviously it's not going to be legal everywhere, so make sure that you're paying attention to that before you decide to, venture into the wilderness that is the aftermarket of the knife world and try and pick one of these up, right? Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here. My calipers, there they are. No easier to find the calipers in the new dungeon. Okay, come on now, zero out. There we go. Blade stock thickness on the Tao, 130. It says 133. It's probably 135 thousandths. That's fine. Right middle. I call that middle of the road. Not too thick, not too thin. Right. If you have enough height, then you're gonna end up with a good cutting edge, and this definitely has it. We'll talk about that some more. Hardware check. Let's get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. Yeah, I've made that simple. The pivot is a T8, and I think the rest of these screws are going to be T6. Darn it, wish they were all T8, but they're not. T6 is fine as long as you're using quality tools, right? There's minimal hardware on this guy, so it shouldn't be hard to take apart, and it's a frame lock. So yeah, you should be good there. Okay, so this is a good-looking knife. It's pretty straightforward, and we've seen a lot of stuff lately that looks kind of similar, but this guy still manages to have some unique characteristics. The blade, there's a ton of stuff out there that looks like this. There's tons, and it gives off almost kind of a Shirogorov vibe, but it also kind of looks like the Ontario Rat blade, right? It also looks like the Thief 20 blade or the Thief 23 blade. Philippe Georget. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly, right? We see a lot. That is a knife blade. It looks good. The handle, I think, is where it's giving off some of its personality. We've got some interesting milling going on right here. This sort of orange peel bead blasted texturing that's going on in this area. They have their logo back here. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Backspacer looks good. There's a little anodized little lanyard bar right there. Over on the other side, really more of the same. A lot of these areas that have been chamfered have also been textured, which is a nice touch. Not all of them, but a lot of the areas. Can we focus? Can we focus? All right, there you go. That's cool. All the edges are nicely knocked down, and the primary hand position for this guy is pretty comfortable. This you can feel a little bit. It's kind of flat, and it's not sharp. It's just like a flat piece of metal that's poking into your hand. You can choke up right behind the blade, but this area is not really a choil. It's just an area that you can hold on to. I'd be careful in that area, but you can definitely do it, making full use of that cutting edge right there. There's nothing in the cutting path. But yeah, the primary hand position is good. It's comfortable enough. Not anything mind-blowing, but comfortable enough, right? Feels good. You've got plenty of room to move around. Not feeling super, smashed into one area of the knife. So this is a flipper and a front flipper. The front flipper works great. This is a frame lock, right? So that means the lock area is exposed. You have to be paying attention to where you're putting your fingers, right? If you're going to squeeze like this and put pressure on the lock bar, it's going to be a lot harder to flip it. Fortunately, there's quite a bit of room over here, and they didn't, they made the lock not take up an enormous amount of room. So I'd say it's pretty easy. And then if you don't want to do that, well, you can just flip it. You do need to light switch it though, because if you push button it, the front flipper is going to come around and whack you in the index finger, and it's not going to open all the way. So you need to go like this. But it works, and the action is quite good, consistent and smooth. This is the first knife that I've ever handled from Kunwu Knives, not made in the United States. I keep saying Kunwu, it might be Kunwu. I'm honestly not sure about the pronunciation, so I'm sorry about that. Easy to disengage, and even if you do manage to catch that little flipper tab right there, I'll show you. The point where the detent ball is engaging on the, like where it falls off the tang is right, it's so close to where it locks out. It's right there. So as soon as that flipper tab catches your finger, you're well in, a good enough spot to just turn the knife and let it drop. No double clutch is what I'm saying, which is nice. I like being able to engage and disengage the knife with one hand. Why? I don't know. It's satisfying. I make up stuff about it being, more utilitarian that way because your brain isn't dedicating a certain amount of subconscious activity to making sure that you're safely doing that. I don't know if that's true or not. I like to think that it is, right? If you're actually working with the thing, you're not going to stop and be like, oh, admire all the look. Or you don't want to have to stop and mess around with it so that you can get it back in your pocket. It should just be flip, use, right? And then close it and put it back in your pocket. It's easier, right? A lot of people, the funny thing, Hey, side rant, right? A lot of people are like, all these newfangled fidget knives are just too much fidgeting. Just get your knife out, get your buck 110 out, use it and put it back away. I can get this thing out, use it, and put it away much faster than somebody who's using a buck 110 because I don't have to move my hands back, push on the backlog, close it with 2 hands, and fiddle around with it and get in the right position in my pocket. I understand some people really like those traditional knives, right? But that's why I like stuff like this that's easier to manipulate with one hand because it's just faster. It might only save me a couple of seconds, but I don't like to screw around with old school knives like that. I don't want to mess around with it, right? It's ironic, really, that that's generally who I'm getting that argument from. Is these newfangled fidget things are just toys, and there's too much fiddling around and too much time wasting. No. It is if that's what you're dedicated to, if you are intentionally sitting there on the couch and playing with it, well then sure, right? But when it comes down to using it, I would argue that a lot of these newfangled fidget knives are actually faster and a bit more efficient, right? It just depends on what you're doing and how you're using it. Also, a front flipper, right? It might seem like something that is dedicated to, catering to the fidget crowd. Once you get used to a front flipper, I would say, in this case, it's actually easier to use than the flipper tab. It's almost become second nature, which is the case with everything, right? A front flipper is, I would say, a harder deployment mechanism to adapt to than something like thumb studs or a flipper tab, right? But there was a time where thumb studs were new on a pocket knife. There was a time when a flipper tab was new on a pocket knife. The only way we had to open these things was with a nail nick or something like that, right? So that appeared to be silly. And now I couldn't imagine, deploying a knife with 2 hands anymore. I need a thumb stud, a flipper tab, a front flipper, something like that. So it might seem like front flippers are just there to cater to, the knife enthusiast crowd, and it has nothing to do with utility or convenience and more so just fidget. I would argue that anybody can adapt to anything and make it second nature, right? Like the hole on the Spyderco knife has become absolutely second nature to me. And there's even the reverse flick, which might seem like it's just for me and I'm sort of playing with it, but the reverse flick is easier for me on the Spydercos now than any other means of opening it, right? So expand your mind a bit. I truly don't believe that front flippers are, exclusively just, a way for people to play and mess around with their knives. No. I think that this is, once you get used to it, definitely a convenient way to open the knife. So, and if it's made correctly, it's also safe. Anyways, I do like the deployment system. I like the profile that it gives the knife. Sorry, I'm cleaning this off a bit. Here's what I don't like. More of these satin finishes. Man, something else. Machine polished tumbling looks better. It just does. It also, sometimes these belt satin finishes, I don't know if they're getting a little cooked. When they're totally cleaned up, they give off a little bit of a bronzy hue, and I think it kind of looks cheap, right? Some machine belt satin finishes look all right. Some hand rub satin finishes look all right. I'm always going to prefer a polished tumble. This is dirty, but I just think it looks better, and I think it hides wear better, even though this Ritter Hogue is really gunked up, but I just think it looks better. Okay. Jimping on the blade is definitely in the right spots. These areas are nicely knocked down, despite it being a satin finish blade. It doesn't get sharp till out there, which is fine, right? And you can strike a ferro rod off of it if you need to, right? The blade does taper down to a pretty darn thin edge. This is very performance-oriented blade shape. We see it on everything, but you know what? It's because it works, right? Not a new blade shape. These guys aren't copying Rat or Shirogorov or anything like that, because this blade shape has been around substantially longer than any of those companies or any of those knife makers, right? And any of them have ever existed. This blade shape has been around since the dawn of time. It was like there was primordial soup and this blade shape, right? So, no, it's not a copy of anything. This is just a generic, like almost a prehistoric knife blade shape. But yeah, it does look good. It's going to be very, very functional. Unfortunately, on this side, we have Tao and this whole thing, right? Oh, he said first production 20 of 400. So I was wrong about the initial number. Maybe he did multiple production drops. I have not been able to confirm this, which is why I was guessing there a little bit. So there are at least 400 of these. And when he says first production, right, it just means that those were the first 400. So perhaps there were more. I don't know. I apologize for not having that information, but maybe for those of you who were thinking about hunting one of these down on the secondary market, you might have a little more optimism now than when I said that there were only 60. So there you go. M390, wow, great. Especially considering these were 170 for the people who got a hold of them on, that was a left-handed front flip, by the way. For the people who got a hold of them on that production drop, pretty cool, right? If you want to reduce this, to its base, it is another foreign-made titanium frame lock flipper running on bearings and using M390 that is satin polished. We have a lot of those. This one does have a little bit more character. I think a lot of these companies would do better, especially the front flipper ones, to not do an exposed frame lock. This needs to be a solid scale. Put a countersunk steel liner lock on the inside. Is that more expensive to do? I would imagine so, a little bit. But honestly, I think it's better. I like how it looks better. It's better for when you're using it, you're squeezing it, you're not messing with the lock geometry. Not that that's really that big of a deal. And it's also going to be easier to flip because you don't have to worry about where to put your fingers. It's fine like this, but I reviewed that Kubi Barracuda, and it was a front flipper with a countersunk steel liner lock, and I just really appreciated that. I prefer that in general, a countersunk steel liner lock in general, over a frame lock. But a frame lock might be stronger. Might be. Depends on the geometry, depends on the design, depends on a lot of things. It also depends on whether or not you are using the knife appropriately. If you're using it like a knife, any excess strength you might gain from the frame lock is, in my book, trivial. If you're tying the knife to the end of a stick and you are swinging that thing down on a cinder block to try and get the blade to disengage, well, first off, you're stupid. Second off, is that really? What are you proving? What have you found? What is this? In very complex scientific test concluded with, right? So just give me a countersunk steel liner lock is what I'm saying. Wow, that was a really snobby rant. Anyways, good looking knife, definitely. Like the jimping, like the, the slightly raised backspacer here. It's real good. The pocket clip is also nice. It's super, super deep carry, and it's reversible, which is cool. I like how they slot them in like that. It's not necessarily like the deeper the clip, the better the knife, but I like that because I can sink this entire thing into my pocket and just not have to worry. I hate knives that do this, where it's like, a huge chunk of the knife taken out, but it's fine. Should be easy to get a bit in there and unscrew it, pull it out, and flip it to the other side. It's nice. The clip is well designed with a nice ramp. Like I said, it does create a little bit of a hot spot, but not like oh no, my hand, it's going to fall off. No, it's good. It's going to rise to meet pretty much whatever thickness of pocket seam. It's pretty thin. It's kind of a stamped out clip, right? Might have been cooler to have something a little bit more robust and more, like a 3D milled something that goes, because the rest of the knife just feels so, purposefully shaped. The pocket clip seems like something that could go on a number of different knives. And maybe that was the idea, to create a pocket clip that was very, very generic and easy to manufacture, but could be the same clip on every knife. I don't know. I don't know anything about this company. I've seen that done before. Yeah, really like the milling here. I like how they lip this up around that's something that I've seen like Sharp by Design do around their pivots. It's just, I don't know, it's a nice little touch. This area could otherwise be pretty ugly if they left it, because you'd have a side of the screw just sticking up out of the titanium as it drops down to this edge right here. But it's not the case. This lock bar is very easy to engage and disengage because they have cut that area out on both sides. So that's nice. The lockup on this guy is coming in at maybe 45% or so. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. That's really, really nice to see. No lock stick. There's a stop pin back here with the slightest amount of shouldering. The smallest amount of shouldering I've ever seen, right? They could have almost just made that flat, but they didn't, right? So that's fine. Pivot lash. Is there pivot lash? No. Okay. I really thought there would be. And the detents. Great. Not mushy. It's very clicky. I'll give you guys another demonstration of that. That's what I like to see. Nice. Centering. Almost spot on. I'm going to guess it's from me flipping it. Should we try and should we see? Let's do it. All right. If you're going to say that, prove it. I know. You're right. Can't just assume everything's going to be centered. Let's do it like this. It did need a little bit of a turn. And yeah, just about. Can we go a little tiny bit more? Captive pivot. That's nice. I would say, I'm going to call that centered, guys. Action is exactly the same. Nice. Good tolerances. Okay. Pretty good. Wow. Make this more available. Do more of these, definitely. I understand. You know, it's small production company, right? It's probably one, maybe two guys. I don't know. Yeah, this is good. Especially if we can keep those prices down there. $170 for this. Yeah, definitely. That's where all WE knives should be, by the way. All of these Chinese production knives that are good, right? Like your Bestech, your WE, stuff like that. I'm not going to throw Riot in there. Riot is a couple of steps up. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, this really generic, straightforward, like WE's getting kind of crazy with their $280, titanium frame locks and M390. That's basically the same thing as this. This is right around where I think it should be, $170. And I'm going to start getting, after handling this, I think I'm going to start getting a little bit more, being a little bit more nitpicky with some of these, Chinese. I'm not like, I will never buy a Chinese knife. Like, that's fine. Some people think that it's fine. Think how you want. I'm not like that. But I am going to be a little bit more picky about where their pricing is. That's going to be a much bigger deal to me, moving forward and well into 2022. So it's not, a lot of these knife companies that are making stuff out of China are getting away with some really ridiculous pricing. And I think I've been a little bit lax on it. So $170 for this. I'm sorry, $170, which is what the drop price was for this. That's great. Do not overpay for this in the secondary market. Follow them on Instagram. Check out what they've got going on in the future, and perhaps you can get in on something like this. I know that generally as these companies grow, their prices increase, right? So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if you can keep getting stuff like this for $170, I mean, yeah, this is great. Pocket clip is kind of stamped and pressed. I think maybe, the flipper tab back here is a little bit annoying because it runs into your finger, right? I would really like it if this were a countersunk liner lock. But those are pretty minor nitpicks, right? Nice looking knife, and great value for what they were. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Hard to say recommendable because you can't just go out and buy it, but I think you guys get it. This is a positive review. Thanks again to Juan for sending this in for me to take a look at. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.